Hey there, true believers. You're tuned into Baxter Building Radio via the Negative Zone feed, and welcome to episode 33 of the Fantastic Four Fancast. My name is Nate Charles. I'm your host, and as always, I am joined by my co-host, the illustrious Shane Murray.
I don't
Shane,
know
how are you
about
tonight?
I don't know about illustrious, buddy, but I'm doing okay. How about yourself?
Listen, if the listeners could see you right now, they would see the luster on your beard, and they would agree with me.
They would see Santa Claus. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, more or less. More or less. What have you been up to, my friend?
Not much. Actually, I did read a bunch of books. I went through a bunch of backlog this week. I think I read 17 books.
Wow, you had some time on your hands. I'm happy for you.
I woke up Saturday morning and felt like phenomenal. I don't even know how, like something I haven't felt in years. Like, I woke up, made coffee. Everyone was like still sleeping, and I was like just reading and reading and reading, reading, reading. And then by the time anyone woke up, I already had like seven books down.
So what all did you read?
The first two books in Planet She-Hulk, caught up in Supergirl, caught up in Fantastic Four, finished the Hulk series, read the first Infernal Hulk, read Hulk Smash Everything. There's two other books that I can't think of. Oh, Transformers and something else I can't think of off the top of my head.
Nice. Well, then I gotta ask, now that you're caught up, how are you liking the current run on Fantastic Four by Ryan North and Umberto Ramos?
Oh no, I don't know how to feel about it yet. Interested to see where that next issue goes from that last issue. How you feeling about that series?
It has my interest so far. We'll end up covering those issues eventually, I'm sure, but I thought it had some neat ideas as far as the time sled and the Forever Stone and whatnot. Their whole being persecuted, I guess, for lack of a better term, by Maria Hill and her new iteration of Shield. I don't know. I know that's been a plot line since the last volume a little bit, but that doesn't interest me as much. But we'll see how it goes.
What about you, buddy? What else have you been getting up to since we played D&D last Friday?
Well, I got to the comic shop today. Picked up the last two issues of Fraction's Batman and latest issue of Jed McKay's X-Men. But yeah, kind of a late week for me.
Is Batman up to five?
It is
Okay.
as of this week. Put some money down on a little bit of a Grail book right now that I'm paying on. So
Oh
almost
yeah.
have that brought home. Yeah. I don't want anybody to walk into the shop and somehow undercut me on it. Not that I think that our friends who own the shop would do that, but I think I will wait to reveal that once I have it in my hands. But yeah, other than that, I've just been working on putting together this convention, Bloomsburg Comic Con in Bloomsburg, Pennsylvania, in May of this year. We're in talks with some guests right now. We've been getting vendors. So yeah, a lot of cool stuff.
Well, it's been positively fire this week, so let's go into this book all about fire.
So today, Shane, we are covering Fantastic Four Volume 1, number 233, which was cover dated for August of 1981, but it was released on May 19th of 1981 with a cover price of 50 cents. You
I
know what time it
wish.
is, right?
Yeah, I
It's
do.
what time is it, Shane?
Price is Right time.
That is correct, Shane. You are going to attempt to guess the price of these books being graded and ungraded without going over. I have prices for both the direct market and the newsstand versions today.
Ooh,
So we'll start with the direct market. What do you think a graded 9.8 copy of this book has sold for, sir?
$56.
You lost. That's incorrect.
Let's go.
$46.82.
That's not bad.
Yeah. How about an ungraded copy of the direct market version?
$5.
Again, you are over.
Wow.
Yeah. $3.91.
Not bad.
So now let's hop over to the newsstand version. Now, we know that the newsstand versions generally go for more.
Yep.
What do you think a graded 9.8 newsstand copy has sold
I'm
for?
gonna go with my back to my what was I my original one was like $55. So I'm gonna stay right there at $55.
So you are under. You are also freezing.
How much did this go for?
$152.50.
Wild.
And then the ungraded copy, Shane.
$4.25.
Very close, $4.89. So good job, you know. You know what they say, 1 out of 4 isn't really good, but we'll take it.
I got 2 out of 4. What are you talking about? One was just real
Mid,
close.
mid, mid is what we'll call it.
50%.
Our creative team on today's issue, John Byrne handles not only the writing, but also the penciling and the inking. Colorist again was Glennis Wayne, letterer Jim Novak, editor Jim Salicrup, and editor-in-chief Jim Shooter. Shane, would you care to hear a synopsis today?
Yeah.
Good. Well, Marvel Unlimited has been kind enough to provide one to us. Johnny launches his own investigation into the murder of one of his old high school bullies. How's the magia involved? Short, sweet, and to the point.
Yeah. I love the name the Magia, by the way. It makes me laugh every time I read it
Yeah, why's that?
because they're just too afraid to change that letter to an F, apparently.
So today's cover has pencils by John Byrne, with inks by Terry Austin and Gasper Saladino. Shane, you want to go ahead and take us through that?
Yeah, this is a pretty cool cover. Johnny full on flamed on, breaking whatever contraption seems to be trying to lock itself around him. And full on explosion where he actually makes the one guy to the right of him for where we're looking at it, but like I guess it would be the left of him really. Have to cover his eyes, and the other guy's just trying to run away, it looks like, from the explosion. A lot of bright colors on this. Red Johnny is full on flamed on, so he's red. His flyer is all yellow for some reason in this, and then just a nice bright orange background flowing through. Then you have that nice corner box with all of the faces of the FF, which is good because that's about the most you see him in this whole book.
And we have
Um,
a caption with the title down in the lower right, Mission for a Dead Man. We turn the page and we're greeted with our recap box. Reed Richards, Ben Grimm, Sue Richards, Johnny Storm. Together they braved the unknown terrors of outer space and were changed into something more than human. Mr. Fantastic, The Thing, The Invisible Girl, The Human Torch. And now the world will never again be the same. Stan Lee presents The Fantastic Four. And we are again greeted by the title of our story, Shane.
Mission for a Dead Man.
Now, I do like the layout of this first page. It is literally two panels side by side, which is, normally you would get like maybe like a half page splash and then like a panel below, but I like kind of the change up of the layout here.
Like the half page splash seems to be a very big part of starting any of the Fantastic Four books until like the books now where they have the recap pages.
And we start off with a look at what appears to be a maximum security prison. The name over the gate reads Deeden State Correctional Facility, a misnomer dating to an earlier time. It has been compared to Alcatraz, to Sing Sing, to 100 other hellholes that men by the action of their lives have committed themselves. There are few living who have heard of Deeden. This is not surprising. Legends rarely grow around places such as this. Legends grow only when there are men to tell them, and the brand of correction practiced at Deeden has that irrevocable finality that prevents such storytelling. In 57 years, no one has ever escaped the prison sometimes nicknamed Dead End. No inmate leaves the walls of Deeden alive. Case in point, one George David Munson, inmate of the last cell on death row, awaiting his rendezvous with eternity. His crime? The deliberate killing of a human being in furtherance of theft. And what are we seeing, Shane?
We see a man sitting on the edge of his bed while talking to looks like a pastor or a priest of some kind.
And the priest says, Come along now, Davy. It's time to go. Yeah, I know, Father. Oh, how I know. And you know what really hurts, Father? All them rotten things I've done in my life, all the men I have killed, all the stuff that I maybe really deserved to die for, and I am getting my chain pulled for something I didn't even do. Come now, Davy. We've been through this all 1,000 times. There's nothing more that can be done, and to continue protesting your innocence. I know, Father, all the prisons are full of innocent men. I've seen all the movies. I know all the lines. Only this ain't no movie. You ain't Pat O'Brien, and I ain't Jimmy Cagney. In a minute, they'll walk me down that hall, and I'll die, Father. There ain't no reprieve once you get to dead end. But do me a favor, will you, Father? I almost won't mind dying if you promise to deliver that letter for me. And the inmate motions towards his bedside table where an envelope sits. I I will do what I can, my son. Now, the scene is not a new one. It has been enacted hundreds of times in hundreds of prisons. But at Deedon, the dialogue is altered. The condemned here do not call out encouragements to the man passing them. And the priest leads this inmate, George, down the hallway as he is flanked by two guards and the warden. And he prays, "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures." And they escort George to the electric chair. Deedon is a house of the living dead, and even so-called gallows humor finds no place here. This cold, bare room and the clumsy, bulky wood chair at its center have made certain of that. In nervous silence, the man of the cloth makes his way to the gallery. With half his mind, he notes the small turnout to see the last moments of David George Munson. Only the stone-faced warden and the officious little man the priest takes to be the coroner. Then it begins. The electrodes are clamped in place, the switch is thrown. Like a cliche from 1,000 bad big house epics, the lights dim. The man in the wooden chair stiffens, his face twists into a hideous rictus. And we see the warden, who is rather stone-faced, as previously mentioned, and the priest, who looks on in somewhat sickened awe. The background of this panel I find very striking. It's a white background. They are lit entirely in red. Really gets the point across, not just with their expression, but also with the color palette chosen. I really like the design of this. You don't get any kind of gratuitous shot of George Munson here being executed, which is fine with me. I've seen The Green Mile. I don't need to really see this in a comic based on the Fantastic Four. But what do you think of this panel, Shane?
I also enjoyed this panel because again, like you said, with the reds really shows up nicely against like that white. But the big thing I think is the difference between like it looks like the father's probably this is like the first time he's seen this versus the warden who's just like it's another day. Like this dude's become so stone cold to it at this point. It's just like I get paid to do this. Doesn't look like he's happy about it. Doesn't look like he's sad about it. Just like, yep, another
The
day.
facts of life. Abruptly, it is over, and for his crimes, real or imagined, David Munson has paid the supreme penalty. Only then does the priest glance at the address on Munson's last letter. And what's that address say, Shane?
It says the Human Torch at the Baxter Building, New York City. It's a weird choice of all of the FF to choose the Human Torch.
But we will find out why. So it is that some 2 weeks later, in front of New York's far-famed Baxter Building, we see the priest exiting a cab on the crowded street outside of FF headquarters. The cabbie says, "That'll be 27.50, Father. You want I should wait?" "No. No, thank you. I don't know how long I shall be here." For a moment, the priest pauses before the 35-story edifice. His eyes dart up, seeking a sign of activity in the upper 5 floors. It is with perhaps the smallest sign of disappointment that he realizes all is quiet. And so, with a nervous tug at the starched white of his office, he enters the bustling lobby. Eh, it's so normal. I don't really know what I expected. But if a tenth of what I've read about the Fantastic Four is true, I'm a trifle surprised to find that I can get up to their headquarters by so prosaic a means as a common elevator. And as he stands before the elevator doors, which have the Fantastic Four's logo on them, he reaches down for the elevator button. Hmm. The call button is lower than on the other elevators, and it doesn't light when I press on it. That's odd. It doesn't seem to be working. Surely the Fantastic Four would maintain their equipment better than that. Something I can help you with, Father? And the priest jumps with a startled, "Eh." And what happens, Shane?
Sue Storm pops out of nowhere with Christopher Reeve walking behind her.
He does look rather Clark Kentish, doesn't he?
Oh, so badly like Clark Kent.
And Sue lays a hand upon the priest's shoulder and says, "Oh, sorry I startled you, Father. I'm afraid I'd quite forgotten that I was still invisible. There, is that better? I'm Susan Richards, the invisible girl. I I have a letter for your brother, but your elevator seems to be out of order." Not at all, Father. It's just that you don't have a special belt buckle solenoid like we members of the FF do. This microbeam key is the only thing that'll call the elevator to this level. And Sue activates the beam on her belt buckle, and it makes a noise, Shane.
Yeah, nice ping.
My husband, Mr. Fantastic, invented and installed it. He'd consider something keyed to our fingerprints, but the thing has no fingerprints. After you, Father Vito, Father Albert Vito. Thank you. And Sue ushers him into the elevator, which begins to rise. Hmm. Once again, I confess surprise, Mrs. Richards. In order to gain access to your headquarters, I expected to be prodded and probed by all manner of esoteric devices. We prefer a more subtle approach, Father Vito, but don't worry. We are being scanned. And speaking of which, what do we see?
We see a X-ray image of them coming up the elevator with Reed looking at all the consoles, doing some studying of them as they go up, making sure they're clean.
And Reed thinks to himself, Voice and bioscan confirms that's really Sue, and the man with her doesn't match against any of our known enemies. Plus, he doesn't appear to be carrying any concealed weapons. I think it's safe to assume he is precisely what he presents himself to be. Having thus decided the priest presents no threat, the man called Mr. Fantastic twists his incredible elastic body across the room, and I'll just cue the elevator to disembark them on the visitor reception level. And so we see Sue escort Father Vito into a well-furnished reception area, and she says, Here we are, Father. Please make yourself comfortable. I'll fetch my brother. Thank you. Suddenly, what happened, Shane?
Some kind of device comes flying across the room at Johnny, thrown by the thing.
Johnny is fully flamed on and manages to dodge out of the way of this piece of debris. Oh, my sweet thing! Cut it out! I was only fooling! Johnny, what on earth are you doing? And as this piece of debris explodes against the far wall, Johnny thinks, no use. He's in no mood to listen to reason. And he's throwing that hunk of machinery right at the windows. Gotta melt it before it can smash through and fall to the street. And sure enough, Johnny reduces this item to molten metal. But as Johnny Storm blasts the hurtling projectile, he inadvertently creates a tidal wave of blazing slag. That molten metal will be burned alive. Don't worry, Father. It can't get through the invisible force field bubble I projected around us. But the storm is not yet abated. And what do we see, Shane?
We see Ben come storming into the panel with a more piece of machinery in his hand, and it looks like he is either pulling a curtain or smash that wall. I'm assuming it's a curtain.
I think it's the wall.
No, because it looks like there's a curtain in the panel down below. It looks like it's like vertical blinds.
Okay, you know what? I can see that.
And he looks like he's about to throw another piece of machinery at Johnny.
Okay, you miserable little twerp. I've put up with your garbage long enough. Thing, stop. What's wrong with you? It was only a joke. Ben, what is it? What did Johnny do to enrage you so? Do? He pasted a picture of Christopher Reeve over my bathroom mirror with a note about what super guys are supposed to look like. Ain't bad enough I gotta look at my own mug every morning. Hotshot here's gotta make big funny ha-has about it. This seems like a bit much.
You think? This is a Stan and Jack level temper tantrum for sure.
And Ben reaches down and grabs hold of the futon and takes a swing at Johnny with it, knocking over an end table and a lamp, throwing cushions everywhere.
Oh, it smashes the table. The table is just smashed.
Well, let's see how pretty he looks after I've pushed his stupid head down to his kneecaps. You in what army, wise guy? Okay, thing, if it's a fight you want, the human torch will give it to you. And Johnny lets loose with a burst of flame into the futon cushions, causing Ben to somewhat lose his grip on this piece of furniture. Ah, you blasted flying matchstick. I felt that. You're going to feel a lot worse by the time I'm finished. We've all taken as much of your itching and groaning as anyone could expect us to. Is that so? Well, maybe I can't throw big flaming zaps and knock out bad guys from a nice safe distance away, but I'll still match my strength against your fire any day. And Ben punches through the floor, Shane,
Yeah, with a nice crunch and pulls out a part of the plumbing. This is an old trick at this point.
and he lets loose with an intense stream of water that douses Johnny's flame. And I'll still come out the winner. Hey, cut it out! Caught unawares by the blast of water, the torch's flame is quickly doused, and the raging thing moves in for the kill. Okay, Pipsqueak, I hope you've been saying your prayers every night. But man, wait, But in the last instance, before the terrible blow can fall, what happens, Shane?
Reed comes into frame and wraps himself all around Ben so he can't really punch Johnny in the face.
Thing, in the name of heaven, what are you doing? Keep out of this, rubber man. It's between me and this overgrown juvenile delinquent. The raw fury in his old friend's eyes sends a chill through Reed. It'll be between you and the police if you strike him, Ben. You know no mere human could survive one of your blows. Now let him go and we'll discuss this like civilized men. All right, big brain. I'll let the brat walk away from it this time, but I ain't feeling too civilized. And Ben tosses Johnny into the overturned futon and he lands with a woof. So I'm gonna grab my hat and coat and go for a long walk. I'll be back when I cool off. If I cool off. And if I still feel like coming back. Excuse me, Padre. And Ben pushes his way past the Padre and out the door. Uh, of course, Mr. Grimm. And Reed says, poor Ben. He plays the clown so much even I sometimes forget it's only a mask to hide the bitterness he still feels over his transformation into the thing. Poor Ben. Hey, listen, Reed. I got as much sympathy for the thing as anybody, but sometimes he just goes too far. I mean, Jonathan Storm, you ought to be ashamed of yourself. Hey, sis, ease off, will ya? I only meant I am not interested in what you meant, and don't you ease off me. The very idea, brawling in the middle of our home like a common thug, and in front of a priest. And Reed takes notice of Father Vito again and says, oh, good morning, Father. We seem to have forgotten you. You can apologize to Father Vito later, Reed. If Ben is in one of his blue moods, we'd better keep a discreet eye on him or he might hurt someone. Yes, Stu is quite right. I hope you'll excuse us, Father. Perfectly fine, Professor Richards. I am, in any case, here on business with the Human Torch. You want to see me, Father? What's up? You want me to appear at a church festival or something like that? Oh, well, that would be grand if you'd be available. But, I actually came to deliver this letter. And Father Vito reaches into his briefcase and gives Johnny the letter. A letter? Boy, must be some letter for a priest to play mailman. What's it all about, Father? That I do not know, at least not for a certainty. Well, maybe I should just read it and, well, I'll be darned. And we see this letter in Johnny's hands dated for May 19th of 1981. And it says, Storm, by the time you get this, I'll be dead. Don't cry no tears for me. I've been a louse all my life and now I'm paying my dues. But I want you should do me a favor. My old ma never knowed what a crumb I been. Not until I got framed for this killing, what I didn't even do. So if you don't hold no grudge from high school, see if you can clear my name. Not for me, for my ma. David. David George Munson? I don't ever recall knowing anyone named Munson, Father. He seems sure he knew you, my son. He was about your height, with bright red hair and freckles. Red hair and freckles? I still don't think I. Wait a minute. It couldn't be. Johnny's mind flashes back over the years. And what do we see here, Shane?
We see a flashback to when they were in high school. You have George or David leaning up against the wall with one of his buddies, and it looks like you have Johnny and whoever his flame is at the time taking a stroll down the street.
It was my junior year at Glenville High, just before I became the Torch. For a reason I never learned, I'd gotten on the wrong side of a couple of local toughs. Every day became a question of how far I'd get from school before they struck. And George sticks out a foot and trips Johnny, who goes careening face first towards the sidewalk. And Johnny's female companion yells, Johnny! What's the matter, pretty boy? Hey, Gray, you see that clown kick my foot? He's going to do himself an injury like that. He don't watch out, huh, Georgie? Yeah, I remember. It was Georgie back then, not David George. That's the only redhead I know from school who'd think I might hold a grudge. Now he's dead, father? Just over 2 weeks ago, on May 20th. What do you think you will do? Well, I always was a sucker for a sob story, father. Guess I'll have a nose round and see what I can turn up. I'm glad to hear it, my son. Anything I can do to help, any information you might need, don't hesitate to ask. So we've been covering Human Torch Volume 3. The first issue in particular covered this time period in Johnny's life that we just flashed back to. I'm assuming, based on some of the research I did, that this has to take place after like the first 7 pages of Human Torch Volume 3, number 1, between when he gets his talking to from that principal and when he comes back to school the following year.
That makes sense.
But, that also leads me to believe that Johnny really should have learned his lesson as to how he got on the wrong side of some people that he went to school with. Is not necessarily the easiest person to get along with. If you're looking for examples on that, you can check out episode 23, where we cover that issue. Moving along. So after saying goodbye to Father Vito, Johnny heads up to the hangar deck atop the FF's HQ. And what do we see, Shane?
We see Johnny working on the Fantastic car, like just doing some maintenance, it looks like.
Reed asked me to run a check on the servo grids on our old Fantastic car. This looks as good a time as any to do just that. Moments later, Johnny takes off in his section of the old Fantastic car away from the Baxter building. I could probably make this flight under my own steam, but it's just far enough to deplete my power a bit too much in the event that I should need it, unlikely as that is. Ebert's right. The servos are a bit sluggish. Maybe I can do some repairs en route. Then, something just over 2 hours later, Swooping in over the treetops, the torch brings his quad unit to a city flight speed and heads for the downtown core. Destination in sight. Within minutes, he spots the gleaming glass front of the obviously new Civic Square and drops towards the courtyard in front. Quickly, Johnny seeks out the police department, and after a speedy verification of his identity, what does Johnny do here to verify his identity with the police at the station?
He makes a fire lasso, essentially. It's great.
The man is just so extra. After a speeding verification of his identity, is escorted to the records section, and a female officer has set Johnny up at a table with just stacks of hard copy records. She says, "Sorry the files are so old-fashioned, Mr. Storm. The new mayor's austerity program hit us before we got our new computers. Now, y'all don't hesitate to ring if you need anything at all." "Thanks, I think I have everything I'll need." Left on his own at last, Johnny begins to read the pieced together details of a winter's night 2 years ago. And we get 6 panels following in black and white. Tell us the story that they're displaying here, Shane.
All right, so you see someone break in to a convenience store.
Looks like a liquor store.
Oh yeah, they do bring that up later on, I guess. Yeah. So you see Georgie break into the liquor store, go right to the register, open up the register, and just as he's about to get busted, there's a little tussle, and then in the panel 5 there, he brandishes a gun and kills the worker of the liquor store and then runs away.
Man, he's got about 3 witnesses in the last panel that see him run from this liquor store. Our scene shifts back to Johnny, who has now placed his feet up on the table, which has the records. Hands behind his head, he thinks, boy, no gloves, fingerprints all over the murder weapon, and he couldn't have had any more eyewitnesses to his escape if he had the whole thing catered. Yep, it's just dumb enough to have been our pal Georgie. But there's one detail that troubles me. And so, as the torch seeks out the officer who investigated the crime, it's the silencer that bothers me, Sergeant. Munson was dumb enough to pull the crime, but a silencer is just too subtle. And this sergeant, holding his cigarette, looks at Johnny and says, "Yeah, I know what you mean. It bugged me at the time, but your boy Munson was a transient. As near as I can figure, he'd only been in town a few days. No one knew him well enough to say he was smart enough or not to use a silencer. Tell you something else that bugged me. He admitted to the robbery, but not the killing. That never made sense. Well, if you've no objections, I'm going to have a look around and see if I can dig anything up. 2 years after the fact? Good luck." And Johnny flames on and takes to the sky. 40 minutes later, what are we looking at, Shane?
We see Johnny heading to that liquor store from the previous panel.
Does this look like a boardwalk to you?
It does have the boardwalk feel. I was wondering, like, is this supposed to be like AC or something?
Yeah, it might be. I'm trying to decide if it's a color palette or if it's just the fact that this guy's dressed like a sailor.
The sailor doesn't help. That's for sure.
But Johnny is now in street clothes. Man, he's really pulling off these green pants and pale green shirt combo, huh?
I mean, green's in, apparently, buddy. You didn't get the memo. Now you're wearing blue. So am I. So neither of us got the memo.
Yeah. Johnny thinks to himself, I can't shake the feeling. The whole thing smells funny. Would even a world-class boat like Munson pull a job when there might be a witness around? But if he was framed, by who and why? Well, here's the liquor store. And Johnny walks in and approaches the clerk at the front counter. Boy, look at this place. You'd never know a murder happened. Then what did I expect? Chalk outlines on the floor? Good morning, sir. My name's Johnny Storm. Perhaps you've heard of me? The Human Torch? I was looking into a crime that was committed here. And the clerk reaches out and shakes Johnny's hand vigorously and says, "The Human Torch? Right here in my store. Mr. Storm, I'm honored. Then you don't mind if I have a look around?" The owner consents, and Johnny wanders the aisles looking for what? What am I looking for? Clues? Sherlock Holmes, I ain't. Besides, the cops would have gone over this joint with a fine-tooth comb. Hmm, the back room the murder victim came out of should be around here somewhere. And Johnny pulls aside the curtain to the back room. Here it is. Hmm, just a stock room. What was the owner doing back here with the store all closed up and the lights out? But who approaches Johnny from behind, Shane?
The shopkeep comes up from behind, or is he the new owner now, I would assume.
I guess he is the new owner, and he yells, "Hey, that room is for employees only." "Sorry, but you said I could." "I didn't say you could go poking your nose where it don't belong. Who are you anyway?" "I don't think you are the Human Torch. I think you're a snoopy cop." "Not the Human Torch. Mister, you just pushed all the wrong buttons. Flame on!" And Johnny burst into flame in the middle of this liquor store.
Yeah,
Like,
not the brightest move.
and this owner jumps back with a "ah!" While another customer remarks, "Holy cow, he caught on fire." "You young punk, get out of my store. You come in making trouble. You scare my customers. Get out before I call a cop." Johnny thinks to himself as he flames off. Blast! He's got me dead to rights. And no business flaming on with all this flammable booze around. And I have no official jurisdiction. If he does call a cop, he'd be within his rights to charge me with public mischief. Johnny then once again flames on and flies out of the store into the sky. All right, so I'll leave, but I still think something's rotten in Denmark, and you can bet your best hat I ain't done yet. 8 hours crawl by until 9:57 in the evening. Then we see the owner of the liquor store locking up the front door. As he thinks, "I can't risk waiting any longer. The Human Torch is involved. The rest of the Fantastic Four may be right behind him." His heart pounding, the liquor store manager hurries down near deserted back streets. No one told me I was going to have to deal with super freaks. The best part of an hour and several changes of cab later, H told me never to get directly in touch with him. But this is a grave emergency. What if Spider-Man is involved? Or the Avengers? And the manager enters a phone booth and places a call. Hello? This is Maury. Yeah, that Maury. Let me speak to the boss." Suddenly, who opens the door to the phone booth, Shane?
Oh, none other than Johnny Storm himself.
"Sorry to crash in on you, but I have this real important call to make." "The torch!" And on the other line, a voice goes, "Who?" "Hey, I'm flattered you remember me. Now maybe you'd like to get a few things off your chest?" With explosive suddenness, the man ducks under Johnny's arm and bolts. "Hey, you've got nothing on me. Nothing. There's no way the cops could pin that hit on me." Gasping for breath, he runs, fishing in his pocket for a cigarette lighter as he goes. H would kill me if he knew I kept his number. I was supposed to memorize it, then destroy it. But I have such a bad memory. And he fumbles while he's running with this lighter and the scrap of paper that has his phone number on it. There's still time, though. Even the torch won't be able to reach me before I can touch it off. But who goes flying directly in front of him?
Johnny comes into panel, goes right by him, and unlike what he says he can't do in the Human Torch books that we're going through right now, he actually controls the flame and brings the flame with him.
Looks like you flunked your Fantastic Four trivia quiz, pal. You seem to have forgotten I have a limited amount of control over flame other than my own. No! That fire isn't going anywhere near that paper if I don't want it to.
Does that mean Phil Kessel also failed his
I don't know. I
his
think. I think we still
Fantastic
have a
Four.
couple more issues to go through, and we can see just how accurate this Human Torch series is, you know?
Sorry, it just came to my brain when I was reading it earlier, and I was like, oh, I can't wait to bring this up again.
I believe you meant Carl Kessel.
Ah, yeah, Carl. Oh, why did I say Phil?
I don't know.
Oh, I know I said Phil. He was a hockey player.
That makes sense.
Yeah, he played for like 6 teams. Like he just kept getting traded around. My bad. I'm sorry, Carl.
We turn the page, and Johnny says, and just to make sure you don't stray too far either. And he conjures up a construct of flame around Maury, who yells, a flaming cage! Now I'll just take a little peek at that scrap of paper, if you don't mind. No, you can't. Mister, you just don't know when you're beat, do you? Hmm, a New York area code. That's a start anyway. Okay, friend, there's nothing the cops can pin on you other than unusual telephone habits, so I'll have to let you go. But just watch yourself. And Johnny takes off into the night sky. And so, a few short hours later, what do we see, Shane?
We see Johnny arriving back to the Baxter building in his part of the old Fantastic car. The Baxter
Uh,
building's lit up real nice with that like the blue landing pad with the big number 4. I really like that.
yeah, this is a nice nighttime city downward perspective shot. I really do like this panel. The Fantastic Four has no official jurisdiction in any legal cases. We've never been crime fighters like Daredevil or Spider-Man either, but the computers in Reed's lab have access to all kinds of weird info. I should be able to find out the location of that number. With practiced ease, the Torch docks his module of the Fantasticar, and an hour later, at a moldering warehouse somewhere near the heart of Manhattan's fabled garment district, a somewhat less than friendly poker game has been underway most of the night. And we see three, I don't want to use the term gentlemen, thugs, I guess.
Rebel rousers.
Yeah, sure, we can call them rabble rousers. They're seated on crates, around a crate, surrounded by crates, being lit by one big overhead lamp. And the one says, ha ha, read 'em and weep, suckers. Full house. And let me see that deck. Suddenly, what happens?
We see the Human Torch just go through the wall, full flames on, just burn himself a hole right in there and scare the living night out of these boys.
Sorry to burst in on you like this, guys, but your front door was locked. Holy spit! The Human Torch! What the heck is he doing here? Never mind the questions, you jerk, just blast him. And the thugs draw their pistols and begin firing off shots.
Blam blam.
Man, oh man, I don't know who you guys are working for, but you must make lack of knowledge of super folks a job prerequisite. All I have to do is raise the temperature of my flame and your slugs melt before they hit. Not only that, but with the added speed and agility of my flying ability, I can cream you punks without getting tired. And he catches one of these thugs who has a beard with a big old left hook.
With a clump.
So do yourselves a favor and surrender, okay, guys? It'll save time and bruises. Stop him! There's three of us and only one of him. Oh, come on. If I made a full list of some of the super baddies I've gone up against, you wouldn't even make it as a footnote. And Johnny does a loop de loop and comes back and hits two of these thugs straight in the face as he does
Yeah.
so.
One with a womp and one with a bash.
Two down, but the first guy I clobbered is up and running. Hey, Herman, what's your hurry? You aren't going anywhere. You can't stop me. Once I reach the back alley, you'll never find me. Correction, chum, if you reach the back alley. And Johnny lets loose just a series of fireballs that melt the door in front of this man. The door. He's melted into red hot slag. I can't get out. And the thug turns to run another way, and Johnny keeps hurling fireballs in front of him. Hey, don't run away. I ain't finished yet. Since you're the only one who's still conscious, you'll have to tell me what I need to know. No way, the boss would kill me. Kill you? Sonny Boy being dead would be a picnic compared to some of the things I can do to you. Now fess up before I roast you so bad they have to put you back together with Hamburger Helper. You, you're bluffing, Torch. You're a superhero. Superheroes can't hurt people. It ain't allowed. Johnny grabs this guy by his collar while still flamed on and says, Are you serious? What, you think we have to sign a contract or something? Party of the first part agrees only to use his powers in furtherance of truth, justice, and etc. Tell me something, wise guy. If I cook you, who's going to catch me? Better still, who's going to even know? Still say you're bluffing. Okay, let's find out about that, shall we? Beards and long hair are kind of passe, you know. So how about I give you a nice close shave? And what does Johnny do in this panel, Shane?
He starts giving him a shave of his head and his beard and cuts like a quarter of his hair off the top of his head and one side of his beard off.
Yeah, he's got like an almost two-face split. He's not scarred, but yeah, he's definitely had his hair on one side of his face just totally singed off. Don't move around too much now. If I slip, I can control my flame to within a hair's breadth, so there's no chance of burning him, but there's no need for him to know that. All right, I'll talk. And talk he does, spilling everything he knows to the bemused Human Torch. That's just about enough, pal. Now you be a good boy and wait for the police. Don't force me to come looking for you. No, no, sir. And as Johnny flies away from the warehouse, he thinks, good thing he broke. I was bluffing. I hate to think how far I might have been forced to go to prove I wasn't. So, after waiting to make certain New York's finest have picked up his captives, the Torch heads over Central Park and he comes upon a penthouse atop a skyscraper and says, Ooh, look at those digs. Whoever it was that says crime does not pay didn't figure on the Magia and big business white collar gang bosses. A silent command douses Johnny's flame, and he lands upon the roof outside of the penthouse and thinks, all I was able to get out of that flunky was this address, and the fact that his boss is known as H. Whoever this Magia bigwig is, he's keeping one heck of a low profile. Cautiously, the torch eases towards an open window. Voices. Sounds like a council of war. The time has come to gather our families under one head, and that head is going to be me. You'll forgive me if I disagree, H. And this gentleman who is talking to H, what does he look like, Shane?
Just looks like your regular typical mobster, man. Full suit, older gentleman with like black and white hair and dressed to the nines.
And he's surrounded by some other very stereotypical looking gangsters. You're too well known. Your face has been plastered over the front page of every rag in this burg. Crossetti's right, Hammer. Your vendetta against Spider-Man has made you a celeb, says another gentleman with a mustache and cigarette behind him. You're all wrong, and I'll prove it. But Johnny steps into the room and opens the curtain and says, Sorry I'm late, fellas. I didn't find out about your party until half an hour ago. Hope there's some canapes left. And the first mobster says, The Human Torch. How did he get wise to us? And we finally see the person that they've all been speaking to. Describe this gentleman to us, Shane.
Oh, yes. Hammerhead. He has a big flat top head. It's very weirdly shaped. The front of his face is flat, but he has like a human face, and then it comes up to a point, and then the top of his head is just 100% flat. Looks like the top of an anvil almost. And then he's also like he's in, a robe. He looks like he want as a wannabe Hugh Hefner in that house coat and all.
And he says, "Don't panic, you lousy jerks. I've messed with super clowns before. I can handle him easy." "Hey, I know you. You're the one they call Hammerhead. You were surgically rebuilt by some neuroscientist. But you're supposed to be dead. You died in a helicopter crash in the Hudson River." And when did that happen, Shane?
That stirring saga was related in Amazing Spider-Man number 157 through 159.
Thanks to Jim Salicrup for that editor's note. "Hammerhead don't die easy, punk. You're gonna find out if you mess with me. Now, what do you want here?" "I'm following the trail of a 2-year-old murder, Hammerhead. A murder that a man named Munson was framed for and died for, and that trail leads right to you." "Munson? Munson? I don't know no Munson. I don't know what you're trying to pull, creep. But this whole penthouse is guarded against the likes of you." And Hammerhead presses a hidden button on a statue, and it makes a noise.
Bits
The touch of a hidden button, and what happens, Shane?
These two traps come up from the floor and put four bands around Johnny. The one makes a flang and the other one makes a thunk.
Holy cow! Some kind of red hot pincher thing springing up from the floor. Hammerhead must really be scared. I guess he's afraid Spider-Man will come after him. And a trap like this could fry my wall-crawling buddy, but good. Of course, it doesn't faze me in the least. Flame on! And what happens when Johnny flames on?
We get a retelling of the cover. Realistically, this is like because it's what you kind of see on the cover. So he burns away the what do you call them? Darn you.
Red hot pincher things.
Yeah, so the red hot pincher things he burns away. So he's about as descriptive as I am. Wonderful.
Maybe you should be voicing Johnny. And Johnny takes to the air and says, "And now, Mr. H, if you're finished playing with your toys, we still have some business to discuss." One of the mobsters yells, "Your trap didn't work. He's free." And Hammerhead shouts, "Get out of here, you yellow cruds. Hammerhead don't need the help of jerks like you." Uh, uh, uh. Sorry, kiddies, but I think the police might want a few words with some of you." And Johnny melts the latch on the door out of the penthouse.
Fists.
"Block! He melted it." Suddenly, what happens, Shane?
There is a chair that goes flying across with a crash when it hits the wall.
What the? Yikes. No one told me Hammerhead was super strong as well as funny looking. And
Yeah.
Hammerhead takes a bookcase and swings it at Johnny and misses, and it careens into the wall.
Yep, with a giant crunch.
"It's just a matter of time before I get close enough to smash you into a pulp." And Hammerhead punches the bookcase
Yep, it's the bookcase with
and
a
it
giant
explodes.
yep, with a giant wham.
This is insane. Hammerhead is nothing more than a Magia punk who lucked out and got near the top. He's not what you'd call a supervillain. He shouldn't be this powerful or this fast. How can I stop him? I don't know if he's invulnerable, too. If I use my flame, I could kill him. Relentlessly, the man called Hammerhead presses his attack on the torch as Johnny fights mounting confusion and imminent death. "Give it up, punk. You ain't got a chance. None of you super croops can stop me now." And Hammerhead tears up a piece of the floor and attempts to smother the torch against the wall with it.
Yeah, with a nice scrack.
Now, there's an interesting choice of words. "Good one, Hammerhead. You had me going for a minute there." And Johnny burns his way through the flooring. "None of the newspaper reports mention super strength, and that's like forgetting to say the Hulk is green. So your power must be something new. And I'll just bet it's artificial, ain't it, HH? So let's have a little peek under that robe, shall we? Hey!" And Johnny sets Hammerhead's robe on fire. I have to be real careful here. By controlling the exact temperature and extent of my flame, I can burn off his robe, but leave the man underneath unharmed. Oh ho ho ho! Look what we have here! One handy dandy strength magnifying exoskeleton, complete with flesh colored gloves to cover the armored plates on your hands. And go ahead and describe this exoskeleton, Shane.
It looks kind of like a really badly designed Iron Man suit, or what you would see later on in Weapon X suits. It's a terrible design. It's just metal strapped to his body with hopes and dreams and wires all over the place. It feels like one wire cut and he's stuck.
I mean, two things. It does kind of remind me, for any listeners who are familiar with Spider-Man comics, the kind of cyborg Silverman costume. Also, I'm pretty sure this suit was directly referenced in the PlayStation Spider-Man game in the third DLC that came out for it, which was all focused on Hammerhead and Silver Sable. I think they were referencing this suit, maybe even in the second part. But yeah, this has definitely made its way outside the comic. Hammerhead continues. Okay, so you found out. Big deal. I had the Tinkerer build this suit for me so as I could punch out you super clowns. And who's the Tinkerer, Shane?
Well, it says Spider-Man fans know him from Mr. Jim.
Yeah, he is a Spider-Man villain, an inventor. We've been probably around for 20 years at this point, always
I have it.
outfitting super criminals with various technologies.
Yeah, about 20 years.
And Johnny dives for Hammerhead and shoves him towards the window of the penthouse. Punch out! Punch out! My, aren't we the overconfident bad guy, though? Hammerhead, one of these days you bozos are going to learn it takes more than a fancy suit and a temper to be in the Fantastic Fours class. Hey, what do you think you're doing? And the two of them crash through the penthouse window and out onto the roof.
Yeah, with a literal nice crash. Did your headphones die?
Yep, my headset just died. So apologies, listeners, because you're going to hear a definite shift in audio quality on my end, but we'll overcome this technical difficulty and keep pushing forward.
I forgot how much better you sound on the headphones than when you're not on the headphones. It's such a difference.
Lesson one, Hammy. That suit may make you one tough bad guy, but it also protects you enough that I can use you as a battering ram to bust out of your penthouse. And now, what happens though, Shane?
Right when he thinks he's got the upper hand, Hammerhead smacks him right side the head with a nice downward punch.
Ugh, you've been on top of the heap too long, kid. This is where you get knocked down. I've been pushed around all my life. Nobody gave me nothing. I always had to take what I wanted. Now I almost got the good life in my hands, and no two-bit superhero is going to take it away from me. And he catches Johnny with another left hook. Ugh! Not you, not Spider-Man, nobody. And Hammerhead hits him again, this time with a punch to the gut. Can't take this much longer. If I hadn't done workouts with the thing, my insides would be jello. I'm gonna smash you into little flaming pancakes, punk. This is lights out. Wait a minute. He's not feeling my flame. That suit must be heavily insulated. And that gives me one chance, but only one. Fading under Hammerhead's merciless hurricane of blows, the torch suddenly twists hard around, and what does he do, Shane?
He melts himself a little hole to rip the control panel on the back of the suit with a nice zack.
Hey, what the? He did it. I managed to melt his backpack and fuse the power circuitry. His exoskeleton is shorting out. That was too close. I made fun of his overconfidence, but my own almost did me in. I'm gonna be black and blue for a month. Okay, Hammerhead, it was real fun going the rounds with you, but we still have unfinished business. Ready to talk? It ain't possible. He killed my suit. The Tinkerer said no one would be able to stop me in this thing. Now it's just dead weight. Okay, Tink, that's one you'll have to pay me back for. But right now. And what does Hammerhead do, Shane?
He takes a leap off the building.
You're whistling up the wrong street, hotshot. Hammerhead don't talk to nobody, and nobody takes Hammerhead alive. Hammerhead, no! And Johnny tries to grab Hammerhead as he leaps, but misses. Blast it! My guts are still churning so much from Hammerhead's pounding I can barely think straight. I can't just stand here like a lump while he kills himself. And Johnny dives off the building in pursuit of Hammerhead. Like a fallen star, the Human Torch plunges towards the street below, only to find nothing. No sign of him. And the people on the street aren't reacting as if he landed. Suckered again. It must have all been part of a prearranged escape plan. Should have expected it, knowing his rampant paranoia about Spider-Man. Naturally, Hammerhead would have a few quick exits rigged. Oh well, might as well make the best of it and call the cops to come take care of Mr. H's playmates. And so, within the hour, we see New York's finest are inside the penthouse arresting Hammerhead's associates, while one of them, a lieutenant, is outside talking to Johnny, who is seated on the edge of the building. Not bad for a first-timer, Torch. You bagged us some of the biggest wigs the Magia has. I can book these guys just for breathing the same air. Wouldn't be at all surprised if you get some sort of commendation for this. Thanks, Lieutenant. That'll be a nice little reminder of how I fudged up. Fudged up? I don't understand. I didn't come here to catch Magiadons, Lieutenant. I came here to get Hammerhead to confess to his involvement in a murder a guy I used to know was fried for, and Hammy had never heard of him. Too bad. Wish we could help, but we're surprised enough to hear Hammerhead was alive after that crash. Say, wait a minute though. That other super guy, Daredevil, he just turned in all the Kingpin's secret records. Seems Kingpin was keeping complete dossiers on everyone in the mobs. Maybe that'll have something of interest to you. And when did that happen, Shane?
It happened in Daredevil 172.
And if anybody has not read those issues of Daredevil, that is right in the middle of that initial Frank Miller run, and that is classic stuff. Highly suggest seeking that out and giving it a read. You won't regret it. Johnny looks to the lieutenant and says, maybe it will, Lieutenant. Maybe it will. And we turn the page and find ourselves with an epilogue, Shane.
Yep.
1 month later, an unseasonal autumn lake chill touches the unhallowed ground of the cemetery behind Deedon State Correctional Facility. Amidst the creak of old dead trees and the whistle of dry leaves, two people speak in whispers. And who do we see amongst the tombstones, Shane?
We see Johnny and Georgie's mom.
Yes, Mrs. Munson. And Johnny says, I found what I was looking for, Mrs. Munson. Your boy Georgie was a fall guy. That's all. The old geezer who ran the liquor store was laundering money for the Magia. Hammerhead found out he was also skimming a few $1,000 a year for himself, so Hammerhead sent one of his goons, a guy named Morris Vance, to off the old guy. Vance saw an opportunity to set himself up as the new owner, so he picked out your son, apparently at random, struck up a friendship with him, and detailed his plan to rob the liquor store. He even showed Georgie the gun, which of course got his fingerprints all over it. Then Vance just bided his time until Georgie decided to hit the store for himself. And using the gun and wearing gloves so as not to get his prints on the gun, Vance killed the old owner, who was already unconscious from Georgie's attack. That was probably why Vance was so spooked when I looked into the storeroom. He didn't want me noticing he bricked up the window he'd once used to get in. Vance is being held himself now, pending charges. I know this doesn't bring Georgie back, Mrs. Munson. That's okay, Mr. Torch. He was a bad boy, my Georgie. From all them other things he done, he got what he deserved. And Johnny looks stunned. What? You mean, you knew? All along you knew he was a crook and a murderer? Listen, I may just be an ignorant old immigrant lady, but stupid I ain't. I always knew he'd come to no good. A mother always knows. Mrs. Munson, I'm sorry. I wanted you to believe that Georgie wasn't a I mean, I went digging through old records so you could think that he was. That's because you're the kind of boy from who any mother could get proud. Because you're a hero. And for Johnny Storm, the icy winds that whip around the walls of Deedon, for a moment, are less chilling. Next issue. Who is he? What is he? The fabulous FF meet the man with the power. Miss it not. What'd you think here, Shane?
I had fun with this issue. I thought it was really funny because he's playing detective in that Human Torch run we're reading, and he gets to play detective here. So I thought there was a nice little back and forth going on with that. I don't know about yourself, if that's how you looked at it.
So, on my end, I actually find it kind of nice that we are covering this story the same time that we're covering that first arc of Human Torch Volume 3. I think it lines up nicely because there are a lot of similarities as far as it being a detective tale. This feels much more like a noir detective story than the other one. It's more Maltese Falcon than it is Law and Order, I would say. But yeah, both of them are still fun, and it's always nice to see Johnny kind of out of his element, you know?
Yeah, and this one is like it's really they did a job of like showing of like I said earlier, like you don't see the Fantastic Four a lot in this, all of the members. So they did a nice way of like getting the other three to get out of his way to this become his own issue. I really liked how they handled like how Byrne handled that whole situation.
Yeah, they are very much just taken out of the equation right away, which is interesting. Though I don't know. We'll touch on it in a little bit. I do have some issue with that, but
Sounds like a GG coming up here in our Fantastic Four.
yeah, our Fantastic Four of the week. You want to start hitting those right now?
Unless you got something else you would like to say about this book, buddy.
I mean, I can pretty much say it while we go over that. I go first this week with Fantastic Frame. So my favorite panel was page 15, panel 4. I really like this close shave that Johnny does, going back to the whole noir detective aspect of this, where he's having to intimidate criminals to get the information he wants. And it's just the expression on this guy's face as his hair is just singed away here. Just, I love everything about that panel. You could just tell he's terrified, but that's also a comical expression on his face.
Oh, it is hilarious. And just the whole hair is hilarious. That's a fun panel.
What about you, Shane? What was your fantastic frame this time around?
So mine is page 19, panel 1. I just really liked the depths of color again going off Johnny. I've really been enjoying a lot of the books that we've been going recently with these Johnny focuses that have been doing a really good job of showing the different heat coming off of Johnny and not keeping the flame one color, showing that he has more control over the flame than he realizes a lot of this time.
And that's him burning Hammerhead's robe off?
Yeah.
Yeah. There is a very nice layering of oranges and yellows here. That, yeah, definitely gives this a nice effect to it.
I think that they just really contrast really nice off the red. And I know that's like just it just seems like, oh, it's just Johnny Storm, but it for me sometimes it really shows like because if you go down the next page, like and even the panel over, the yellow is so much brighter. Like this shows because the flame is hotter the closer it gets to clear. And this is like a very dull white, and like there's a white flame, and then the yellow is really dull. So you know that this is really hot. Johnny's like burning up, trying to make sure that he sets a precedence here in front of Hammerhead.
Well, I can see that. He's also noting in there about how he's controlling the exact temperature, so he's only burning his robe and not the man himself. So, I mean, it's just a really cool look and examination of Johnny's power level and his control over fire.
Yeah.
But enough with this positivity. What was your grim grumbling for this week?
I kind of had a hard time with this one for a while because I enjoyed so much of this book. But page 3, panel 8,
Stu opening the elevator?
the P laser.
What?
The P laser. That, that is a very odd choice of a placement, and it's a very odd image. The P laser
The thing
is
is we're going to run into this, I'm sure, in earlier issues of Fantastic Four. I think the first time that I actually saw this in action was in a reprint of Amazing Spider-Man #1. I'm pretty sure there's a portion of that book where they show how they use the elevator using their belt buckles.
I'm gonna hate it every time, buddy. The P laser is terrible.
You do realize that people do not pee out of their waist, right?
Yeah, sure. It's just the P laser.
All right.
I do not like that. Do not like that at all. What I wrote specifically, do not need weird laser scenes.
Okay. It's comic books. You're gonna get weird laser scenes, but
Yeah, like on sharks' heads.
listen, I'm gonna chalk this up to the fact that you were just struggling to find something for your Grim Gremlin this week. Just fine. It's fine.
I enjoyed most of this book. There wasn't really anything I really hated. So, what's yours, bud?
Page 5, panel 4. Really, Ben? That's all Johnny had to do this time to set you off was put a picture of Christopher Reeve over your mirror? Seems tame compared to a lot of the stuff he's done. I don't know. It felt like a regression for Ben.
Yeah, I mean, I even
I
brought it
get
up in
that
there.
Byrne was trying to take things back to basics with this run, at least initially, but there's taking things back to basics and then there's throwing out character development.
Yeah,
And I kind of feel like that's the latter more than it is the former. It's just makes for a lame excuse to get Reed, Sue, and Ben out of the rest of the story.
yeah, killing 20 years of character development to tell a 22-page story.
Yeah. I mean, I get we all have bad days. There are days that like I wake up and something that wouldn't normally set me off does, but I don't know. It just seemed weak for a reasoning.
No, fair enough.
But
So
enough of
what's
this negativity. Let's talk about our cosmic cliffhanger.
Oh, you beat me to it. What's yours, buddy? You're first.
That is true. Mine is page 20, panel 5, where Hammerhead leaps off of the building. And literally, it's just, Hammerhead has a habit of dying in comics quite frequently. I wouldn't have been surprised if he had went splat here. Obviously, he doesn't, but I didn't know that before I turned the page. So that was my most suspenseful moment of the issue. How about yours?
Mine was page 18, panel 5. Well, I guess it's page 17, panel 5, technically. When Johnny lights the melts the doorknob, I couldn't wait to see what they were going to try to do to get themselves out of that door or try to stop Johnny from controlling all of them.
And the answer was they did nothing, and Johnny just had to duck out of the way of a flying chair.
Yeah, no, Hammerhead just decided to lose his absolute mind and start breaking everything in his penthouse.
Yeah, I guess he wasn't too attached to it.
I think the only thing he's attached to is that giant head of his.
And sometimes not even that. How about your most fantastic player, Shane? Who was your MFP this time around?
Well, for me, I had it as Johnny, seeing that he does figure out the story and gets a lot of the Dons of the Magia locked up when it was all said and done. What about yourself?
I also went with Johnny. I mean, because it's hard for it not to be Johnny, as prologue aside, really, this story sticks with him consistently once he's introduced into the narrative. So, Johnny, at this point especially, is used to being a superhero and adventurer, but he's not necessarily, like he said, a crime fighter, and he's definitely not an investigator. So, I mean, it's cool to see that he's a bit out of his depth, but he also, adapts and overcomes. Really, all he has, more or less, aside from not getting a confession out of Hammerhead, is victories throughout this whole issue. It's very focused on him. It's very difficult for him to not be the MFP here.
Yeah, I don't even know who else you could make it. I guess the father for
Not really.
the mom for just always believing in her kid, but knowing that he's actually a turd the whole time.
Yeah, I'm gonna stick with Johnny.
That's why I said there's not really a lot of options.
Well, true believers, if you would like to check out this story for yourself today, if you're over in the United Kingdom, you could go to your local comic shop or what have you and maybe try to find the back issue bins copies of Marvel Action Volume 1, issues 13 through 15, which were published in June and July of 1981. They reprint this story. Over here in the States, in some back issue bins, you might find a Marvel Superheroes Magazine number 2 from November of 1994. Story has also made its way into a number of trades. Me and Shane both read this out of our Fantastic Four by John Byrne Volume 1 omnibuses that were released in November of 2011. There's also Marvel Masterworks Fantastic Four Volume 21 from December of 2019. Fantastic Four Epic Collection Volume 13, Back to the Basics, will be coming out in February of this year, 2026. So keep an eye for that if you're an Epic Collection fan. You can also find it on Marvel Unlimited, or, as I've been saying, in the back issue bin of one of your local comic shops. Shane, are you interested in hearing about what we are talking about next week?
Absolutely am.
So, I have gotten back into in the Facebook group doing this day in Fantastic Four history posts. Part of that is to, maybe bring awareness to some older episodes that we've done, maybe bring those back around for people who didn't catch them initially, or to gauge interest in future content for us to cover on this show. And one of the first ones I did was for Marvel 2-in-1 number 62, which is a team up between The Thing and Moondragon. And we had gotten a question from one of our listeners and friend of the show, Jim Murray, who was like, "Don't leave me in suspense. I want to know what happens in the whole of this story." So it's actually part two of a three-part story. So we're going to go back and cover Marvel 2-in-1, Volume 1, number 61, to start off that three-part arc. It's by Mark Gruenwald and Jerry Bingham, and the team up begins with the Thing and Starhawk of the Guardians of the Galaxy. So that will be what we're covering next week. Should be a fun little tale.
Yeah, I'm excited for it.
Well, true believers, as always, your feedback is important to us. We would highly appreciate it if you left us a 5-star review on Apple or a comment or a review on Spotify. Jane, you brought to my attention that we did get a comment on Spotify regarding episode 15.
Hmm.
So, longtime listener of the show, Bob Wright, wrote regarding episode 15, which was Fantastic Four 1234, number 3, Darkness in the Mole Man, that this was another amazing episode. Thank you, Bob. We are humbled, but we are glad you are enjoying what we're doing here. He says that he really does enjoy Grant Morrison's Batman, but that he reminds him of Victor Hugo. That his stories are so melodramatic, which doesn't quite fit the Fantastic Four narrative. He keeps thinking of what Roy Thomas said at a convention once, and that was that Fantastic Four fans are the hardest ones to write for because they want everything to stay the same, but they want new stories. He generally enjoys new takes on the Fantastic Four, but this story, 1234, was just a little too much for him. And I know you agree with those sentiments, Shane. Uh,
Oh yeah.
for me, I love the fact that it's just a big chess game between Mr. Fantastic and Doctor Doom, but I also recognize that Grant Morrison's writing is not for everyone, and Grant Morrison's writing is not necessarily for every character or everyone's idea of the character. But we appreciate the feedback, Bob. Thank you very much. You can also be like Bob and join us at the Facebook group. You can find us there at the Fantastic Four Fancast, where we encourage you to engage in FF related discussions and share Fantastic Four content. We only ask that you adhere to the group rules, the most important of which is being respectful of your fellow group members. We are also on Instagram at Fan4Fancast. That is FAN, the number 4, FANCAST. And you can also contact us by email with any feedback or suggestions at fan4fancast@gmail.com. Again, that is FAN, the number 4, FANCAST at gmail.com. And just a friendly reminder, subscribe so we're always in your feed. That way you don't miss an episode each and every week. Shane, do you have any final thoughts that you want to leave the true believers with this week?
Try to find some positivity in your week.
It's doing wonders for you. It's nice to see your smile. Most of the time I got to look at this big grumpy looking Santa Claus.
Uh, Pretty grumpy Santa Claus.
But no, it's good. It's good to see you with a little bit of pep in your step again, man. For Shane Murray, I'm Nate Charles. Until next week, true believers, stay fantastic.